Welcome back to the Woven Well podcast. You may have already noticed that the subtitle to the Woven Well book is A Christian Woman's Guide to Reproductive Health, Fertility, and Wholeness. And I'm sure that there are many out there who wonder what the Christian faith really has to do with cycles and women's health and fertility and the entire reproductive category. Is there actually a spiritual dimension to women's health? And what does that even mean? Are we trying to make pap smears woo woo? Like a little much, a little more than they're actually meant to be. Like, are we making a big deal out of something that is non existent? Because what could faith possibly have to do with fertility? And I honestly think that these are fair questions because we're rarely, if ever, encouraged to think about how these things do indeed overlap. We learn about periods from maybe our fifth grade teachers and sex ed from our high school health coaches. We receive birth control from OBGYNs or maybe college campus physicians. The only time we hear about religion getting involved in reproductive health is usually controversy-filled debate and bickering. It turns into this us versus them language, and it all comes down to religion. That's not what we're talking about. And that's really not what we're about, honestly. Instead, we're about acknowledging that as human beings, we are physical and we are spiritual. We are mind, body, and spirit. We are body and soul. We are not one-dimensional. We're not AI. Thank you, Lord. So the best way to understand our body, how it works, what it means, why it matters, is by considering that bigger picture, which includes the spiritual nature of our humanity. By the way, we also benefit just as much by considering our embodied reality as we practice our faith. So for those of us of the Christian faith, how does our faith influence how we understand what it means to be an embodied human? What it means to be a female human? What it means to be a potentially fertile female human? These are not irrelevant questions. They affect you and me on a daily basis. What we think when we see our body in the mirror, our self-talk as we face pregnancy loss or relationship dynamic as we try to prevent pregnancy. This matters for our lives. And our faith doesn't leave us to figure this out on our own. That's the good news. The Christian faith provides comforting, encouraging, and honestly empowering guidance for what it means to be a woman in the world, but only when you know how to look. You're unlikely to hear a sermon on it. It won't be covered on a Wednesday night. But if you catch snippets in the lobby or around a dining room table during a small group or through a text message chain between moms who are both up at 3 a.m., you're going to catch a glimpse of it. God can absolutely be found right in the middle of our most tender and meaningful moments as women. And He wants more for us than we could ever imagine for ourselves, even as it relates to our female bodies. Now, back in March, I had an article published in Christianity Today that touched on this. It was called Ministering to Women Includes Their Physical Health. And I'll make sure to have that linked in the show notes. And it talked about how impactful it is for women to have local churches who see them authentically and want to acknowledge and honor their physical realities as women. Things like endometriosis, infertility, and pregnancy loss, right? They have a hugely personal and spiritual impact on a woman's life. Now, when I posted that article, well, Christianity Today posted it, but I reposted it on my Substack, which we always have a link to in the show notes if you're ever curious about reading that. But one of the comments to that article really struck me hard. It said, "As a Christian and a woman who suffers from endometriosis, I'm grateful for your words. Little in my life has been as isolating and as spiritually formational as my endometriosis pain." Yes, I immediately responded to this comment, and this is what I said. I wonder how spiritual leaders would be struck by these words. Little in my life has been as isolating and as spiritually formational as my endometriosis pain. Would they be surprised, even floored? But our bodies cannot be separated from our lives, including our spiritual lives. This seems especially significant for women, although I know it's true for men as well. Our physical realities as women affect our lives. They affect how we live in the world. They affect our mental and emotional health. They affect our relationship with God. But I think we've often gotten the dynamic a little bit backwards. We don't know how our faith can guide us, so we encounter the pain or the struggle, and then we desperately look for where God is or why He could allow it to happen, when really God has been there from the start, wanting to give us incredible gifts through our good and intentional design. What if we took a closer look at that design first? What if we approached our female body from the place of belief that God has something good for each of us here? From what I've seen in my experience as a certified fertility care practitioner and walking so many women through this process, is that doing that changes things. It changes how we approach women's healthcare. It changes how we value our unique female potential. It changes how we stand up for ourselves and empower other women alongside us. Too often we think of God and reproduction as being restrictive or nebulous and confusing or simply overwhelming. But I truly believe, after almost 10 years of empowering women to understand their bodies, that God has something very good for us when we take a closer look. Now, if that inspires or encourages you, if you've been hurt by the healthcare industry or the church or others, and you're hoping to heal some of that broken relationship with your own body, I hope you'll get a copy of the book. I really do. This is meant to educate and empower women while honoring this deep, meaningful connection with our faith. And it's meant to be a book that anyone can pick up and begin, any woman of reproductive years. So you don't have to have a ton of knowledge about anatomy or physiology or biology or theology or religion or even the Christian faith. If you're even spiritually curious about how all of this could be tied together, then this book lays it out for you while giving you very practical, helpful, hands-on information about how to navigate things like working with your doctor, advocating for yourself in the doctor's office, choosing birth control or your method of family planning, dealing with infertility and getting to the underlying cause. Okay, so it's going to be very practical, but God is a part of that. And I want everyone who is interested to have access to it. So you can order it wherever you get your books. Call your local library and request that they get a copy so that more people can read it. Share it with your friends, snag it at a local bookstore, and if they don't have it, let them know what you're looking for. We love to support local. God has more for us women. God has more for you. And I hope to be a part of celebrating that with you as you encounter it. Obviously, the name of the book, Woven Well, comes from this podcast, and it is a reminder to every single woman that you are woven well. So, as always, thanks for listening as we continue to explore together what it means to be woven well.